Sounds like we have feedback going on. This is the campus. I hope it's not an actual fire drill. It doesn't sound like it. That would be pretty amazing. Okay. So we might hear sound. We'll just patiently wait until it passes, but I don't hear it now. But you guys are a good sport. There's no image. Can you go up there and let them know the camera's not going to the live feed? We've got the audio going through the live feed, but the camera's not yet going through the live feed. Okay, hold on. Muting my mic. Can you, can Erin, can you all hear me? I bet they can. Can you hear me? No? Okay, barely. Fire alarms, announcements, some delay. Maybe turn down Aka. I can hear myself. There's a delay. But this I'm not sure.
Sorry, I'm getting some feedback, which is okay right now, just whenever I'm playing setting up in it.
Okay. Testing, testing. Can you still hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. And are you hearing the feedback now?
Not right now. It was just earlier. It might just be because you're loud for him, so like maybe if something manages to get through it, it gets through.
Yeah. No, they changed the sound setup. Is the image going through? No? Thanks for your patience, everyone. We're almost set up. We just want to make sure the image is also going through on the YouTube live stream. Are there people on the YouTube live stream? Yeah. Hello, YouTube live streamers. We're almost going to be live with you, with image as well as sound. It's kind of a lot going on because we have a live audience. Thank you all for being here. We have a Zoom. Thank you all for being here on the Zoom. And then we're also managing the YouTube Live. And there's a lot of different miking options as well as camera options. So it's kind of a brain twister, if you will, to figure out the technology and get that all seamlessly working. And for everyone here, the YouTube live stream will also automatically be recording. So that's really great because then if you want to tell somebody about this event who missed it, they can always go back to that YouTube on our channel, LGBTQ Center, and watch the event there. You see image yet? You do see image. Okay. I'm going to soldier on then. All right, thanks everybody once again for being here. My name is Kelly Spivey and I am the director of the LGBTQ+ Resource Center here. My pronouns are she, they, and I'm incredibly excited for this today. Before we get started, I want to tell you a few other upcoming events that are really super exciting. Next Tuesday in the morning, we're having a kind of a really special preview screening of the film Heightened Scrutiny, which follows Chase Strangio on his journey to the Supreme Court. The filmmaker Sam Feder is going to be live in person. There's another short that will be preceding that, June Jung, the filmmaker of That film will be there that is a trans Korean woman who's trying to basically translate being trans to her mother. So that will be really interesting to watch that short and discuss both films with the filmmakers. That's 9:30. It's next Tuesday morning. It's in the Webb building here, which is the Weston building. It's that brown barn-looking building. And the room is 220 in the Webb building. And then on next Wednesday, right? Is that right? No, next Thursday, we have, in this room again, we have a panel, and the name of that panel is Protecting Trans-Affirming Care, a panel discussion featuring Kai Shapley. Now, Kai Shapley, she is a nationally recognized trans youth activist speaking out against anti-trans legislation since kindergarten. And so we're super excited to have her, along with Alyssa Crespo, the executive director of the Stonewall Foundation, as well as Professor Janet Johnson, endowed chair of Women's and Gender Studies here at Brooklyn College. And that will also be moderated by a professor here at Brooklyn College, Stephanie Bonvisuto. Okay, and they will all be here, and so please do. Let's see, you received work. Okay, I'm going to do that. I got a prompt. So that's wonderful. And then these three events really we see as a series leading up to Trans Day of Visibility, which is March 31st, as well as the HES Week. And so hopefully you all took, I think you did, a handout when you came in that features the two HES panels that the LGBTQ plus Resource Center is co-sponsoring with the Wolfe Institute. And one highlight, you want to make sure you attend the one on April 2nd because Chase Strangio is on that panel with Melissa Murray, who is the HES scholar and known for many things, also a podcaster on Strict Scrutiny, and they will be talking about individual rights, so do come to that. It'll be super exciting. Okay, I think I announced everything. And I do also want to say, like, are there any people here that are candidates for graduation this spring? Okay, well, we hold something every year in the spring, Lavender Graduation. If you know anyone who might be interested in this very special way to celebrate our very brave LGBTQIA plus graduates, please come get this flyer, hand it to them. We have more than one, and they need to register by April 11th. Okay. So we're really honored to have Professor Red Washburn, PhD, who's a professor of English and Women's and Gender Studies at CUNY. And Red is Finishing Line published their poetry collection, Crestview Tree Woman, and also Birch Philosopher X. Routledge published their academic book, Irish Women Prisons Writing, Mother Ireland's Rebels, 1960 to 2010s. And they are currently working on a book about non-binary literature, art, and performance. I cannot wait for that. We're having a discussion in the center about how much more literature and art and films we need on non-binary existence and life and reality. So with that, Red, I'm going to hand it over to you. Thank you.
Center,
600 years into the future, and yet we are still 2,000 years ago because of how fast these time scales are. And there was a transgender Roman empress. Her name was Elagabalus, and she used feminine terms to refer to herself. She called herself the Queen of Rome. She once told, a lover called me not a lord, for I am a lady. And she very famously offered vast sums of wealth to any physician of the Roman Empire who could give her gender-affirming care. And as a trans woman today, that is a need. Like, that is still the case sometimes. We've always been here. In the 1300s, there was a Jewish poet named Colonimus ben Colonimus. And we don't know how Colonimus would identify today. This is the picture at the front of one of their poetry books in the center there. We don't know how they would identify today. But we do have them to thank for our very first description of gender dysphoria. Because in one poem, they wrote this lamenting work where they are sad and they cry out to God that they were born a man and not a woman, and how they were cursed with a deformity, and how they wish they could change things, and how their lot in life was to remain sad over this. And I wish I could travel back in time to give Colonimus and Colonimus estrogen. Unfortunately, I can't. What I can do is give them thanks for letting us know that we have always been here. Transgender people have always been here. In the late 1800s, there was a black transgender woman known by the name of Lucy Hicks Anderson. You can see her in the bottom left here. She's being flanked by 2 police officers in this picture. And her story is fascinating. Just as we have always been here, trans youth have always been here too. Lucy Anderson told her parents at the age of 9 years old in the late 1800s that she was a girl in Illinois, despite being assigned male at birth. Her parents didn't know what to do, so they brought her to a doctor. And the doctor, very progressive for the time apparently, said, let her be. She's not hurting anyone. She seems healthy. Let her be herself. And so they did. And she grew up. She moved to a California town where she opened a hotel. She became known as that town's best cook and socialite. She threw the best parties. Everybody loved her. And eventually, she was arrested because they discovered her assigned sex offender. But that's not the end of Lucy Anderson's story. Because the very next day, the townspeople marched down to the jail cell and demanded her release. Because they had a big party to throw that, and she was supposed to be the cook. And so they got her out. We have always been here. In the bottom right, you're going to see a picture of transgender women sitting around the Club El Dorado in Berlin. This was a very famous nightclub at the time. It was known for its trans regulars, as well as LGBTQ people at large. And these people here at this table would have been the very first people to receive gender-affirming care. They were all patients at the Magnus Hirschfeld Institute of Sexology, which was in Berlin. And that institute did the first 30 years of research into trans and queer people. These would have been the first people to get hormone therapy. Some of her surgeries occurred at that institute. And people who went to that institute could obtain legal documents. They could have help with their transition. They could have access to clothing. It was such a foundational place for transgender people and for our history. So we've always been here. But just as we've always been here, we've always had to fight for our right to exist. In the top left, you're going to see a pile of books burning. And these books are found in many history books out there. You'll see this picture of books place where these people at the bottom right were getting their vulnerability. Years before the gas chambers, years before the concentration camps in Germany, Magnus Hirschfeld was one of the first people that were targeted during the rise of fascism in Germany. He was known as, by Hitler as Germany's most infamous Jew. That's what Hitler said, the most dangerous Jew. And they specifically called him a groomer, and one of the very early institutes of Der Stürmer, the Nazi publication at the time. And so we have always had to fight for our right to exist. In the top right, you'll see a picture of the Stonewall Inn. And while a lot of people know the general story about Stonewall, they were raiding queer clubs, a lot of people don't know that the reason why they were raiding queer clubs is because they were looking for people that were not just as their same sex. These were called female impersonation laws, or free articles of clothing policies, where if you weren't wearing free articles of clothing as your same-sex at birth, you could be arrested and charged under those policies. And that's how we got these raids. That's why Stonewall was raided. That's why trans people were among the top people that were fighting back at Stonewall. The leaders of Stonewall were trans anyway. And that's how we got fight. So we've always had to fight for our right to exist. And this would go out through history. In the 1980s, with the AIDS and HIV advocacy. In the 1990s, with the ex-gay conversion program. And in the early 2000s, we're fighting for the right to marry. This history then came to a point in 2015 where gay people were given the right to marry by the Supreme Court in the Obergefell versus Hodges case, which I might add is under threat right now. There are multiple states that are passing resolutions to overturn Obergefell versus Hodges. Even my own state here in Montana is currently hearing such a resolution, which we'll cover later. And while this was a major moment for LGBTQ history, it was also the beginning of the modern reactionary movement against LGBTQ people. Because the people that were on the other side of this case, the Heritage Foundation, the Alliance Defending Freedom, they didn't just take their losses and go home and sit around living. They had a conference the very next year where they said, how are we going to get back? How are we going to roll back the rights of LGBTQ people? And they identified us, transgender people, as the way that they would do that. And they had a plan for exactly how it would be done. So the very next year, of course, they successfully got a bill passed. It was a transgender bathroom ban in the state of North Carolina in 2016. And, you know, for those of you who are younger and don't remember this, like all of the bathroom bans you see today, they were unheard of in 2016. Whenever this bill passed in 2016, it was a scandal for the state of North Carolina. North Carolina lost $3.7 billion in revenue. The NBA All-Star Game pulled out. PayPal pulled out. Deutsche Bank pulled out. In 2017, whenever it was finally overturned, they were begging the court to find against them, to rule against the state, because they didn't want to enforce this law anymore. But this was the beginning of sort of the movement that happened exactly after the Obergefell versus Hodges decision. So before we talk about how we got from there to here, I want to talk about the cultural things that are at play right now. What the current state of the field is on transgender people. So the first thing to note is that LGBTQ identification is up across the board. Only 53% of Gen Z identifies as exclusively cisgender, heterosexual, only attracted to the opposite sex. This doesn't mean that 47% of Gen Z identifies as LGBTQ, but it does mean that there is an increased willingness to admit to non-heterosexual, non-cisgender identities. And 2% of Gen Z identifies as transgender. And so If you're going to go off into the world and you're not LGBTQ yourself, you're going to be working with LGBTQ people. They are going to be your friends, your colleagues, your peers, and so it requires learning. On the other side of this, there are more anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ bills proposed this year than any other year in history. And we are only 3 months in. And so, we have 2 tension points that are sort of holding place right now. And as I said, LGBTQ people are up across the board. It's not just Gen Z, millennials see an increase as well. To a lesser extent, Gen X and baby boomers. This has led some people to question what's going on here. Is there some sort of a mass social contagion of being transgender? So the first thing to note is that it's not just trans people that are up, also bisexual people, gay people, and lesbian people. And so it's not just an increase in transgender people. But also, there are theories and alternate explanations that are much more likely for why we're seeing an increase. I promise you, the idea that you can catch the gay or catch the trans from one another, there's no evidence to make that. There's no study that has ever shown that that is the case. Instead, we can look to something in human history as an analogous period to what we're experiencing today with LGBTQ people. If you go back to the early 1900s, and you had polled people for what humanity is, you would find that 3% of people said that they were left-handed. That number shot up to 12% of people by the 1940s and 50s, where it has stayed steady ever since. What happened? Well, I can promise you that there was not a left-handed plague. People weren't catching left-handedness from one another. Instead, we started making accommodations for left-handed people. Left-handed tools, left-handed scissors, left-handed desks. We stopped beating left-handedness out of people, which was something that was done in the 1930s and 40s, even later than that. And so whenever you start to allow people to be themselves, whenever you start to make accommodations for people rather than actively try to get them to suppress their natural characteristics, then yes, you'll see an increase in them. I believe that that's what you're seeing today. An increase in identification with LGBTQ people in line with the natural preference of our identities. So we have more identification. We also finally get representation. And representation is so important. Whenever you can see yourself reflected on the screen, the world becomes a heck of a lot less lonely. And other people can see people like you and accept people like you. In representation, there's so many studies on how representation increases acceptance and how representation and seeing just mere exposure to an LGBTQ person or a transgender person can help you accept LGBTQ people and transgender people as well. And so, we have people like Michaela Rodriguez, who won Best Actress at the Golden Globes, Vern Cox from Orange is the New Black, Hunter Schafer, Elliot Page, Amy Schneiderman on an absolute tear in Jeopardy. And then in the top right, we have our first transgender officials. I'm very partial to the one on the left that is Representative Zoe Zephyr from White, who is kicking butt in Montana. But we have our first transgender congresswoman, Sarah Crowley. And this matters. It matters a lot. We'll talk about why later. We also get a change in how transgender people access healthcare. Prior to 2003, it was hard to get gender-affirming care. If you were looking to transition, one of the things that you would have to do is save up about $20,000. You would have to go to one of a handful of therapists in the country and basically beg for your right to transition. familiar dress if you were a transgender woman. You could be told no if you loved the wrong person. You had to love very heterosexually. So, I'm married to another trans woman, that would not happen. It also was a time where gatekeeping was very heavy. Being trans was heavily pathologized, and you would have to go through years of therapy before you could even be allowed to have a letter. Um, the therapy would consist of conversion therapy. The strictest way that the therapy would be handled was for those years they would try to convince you not to transition. And only after being gaslit for 2 to 3 years would they finally allow you to. This was a different time. And thankfully things changed since then. A number of things happened. We had the WPATH Standards of Care 6, which came out in early 2003, and then the Standards of Care 7 in 2013, and then the most recent one in 2000, WPATH 8 in 2024, 2023. And what's really important to note is that this allowed for informed consent from the therapy, which are clinics that will believe you that you are trans, and they will help you with your medical transition. And they're not meant to gatekeep, people who don't have tens of thousands of dollars out of transition. And so if you look at this map, this is my hormone therapy access map, which I made several years ago, and I've been adding to it ever since. Most of these clinics are in the United States and Canada, although more have opened up in other places. Australia has a lot of informed consent clinics. Spain and France have some. The UK has one. Japan has recently opened up its first clinic. And so this was huge. This allows people to transition. I want to note that it's still not the case in many countries. Even in countries that most people would consider fairly liberal and progressive on these topics. Places like Sweden, Finland, Norway, places like these. It can take up to 10 years to get your letter. In the United Kingdom, the wait time for getting gender-affirming care through the NHS in many places is approaching 10 years. And it's important to note that the main reason why this is the case is because the heads of the transgender medical systems in these countries are people who who came up in a time, who got their degrees in a time, and who treated people in a time where transgender people were heavily gatekept. And they're sort of holding those positions of power. Thankfully, that's not the case here in the United States. So let's talk about the laws themselves. The headline is the laws that I'm reporting on. I mentioned that there are more anti-LGBTQ bills than any other time in history. We've had 1,600 in the last 4 years. And now we have federal policy, which we'll talk about in a little bit. These federal policies ban transgender people from being able to get their passports into market. We're seeing trans military members discharged. We have a federal bathroom ban. Teachers are being investigated, and funding is being pulled from children's hospitals. Meanwhile, internationally, we are seeing crackdowns on transgender people. There's an absolute ban in Russia and in Hungary. In the United Kingdom, the cash review was cut off, which led to a puberty blocker being there. In Sweden, they have drawn down care. In New Zealand, there are sports bans. Saudi Arabia has trafficked people outside of the United States. And Argentina has massive police brutality against transgender people right now. And so, this is not something that is limited to the United States. How did this happen? How did we get here? Well, it started with sports. I mentioned the Alliance Defending Freedom, Heritage Foundation, all those groups. About 6 years ago, they released their first anti-trans ad, and it was against Andy Boucher in Kentucky, and this ad failed. But the ad was the first to say, here's this cisgender girl winning wrestling competitions, and then a very clearly cisgender boy steps into the field and wins in like a sporting event. This ad was created by Terry Schilling, who belongs to the American Principles Project. And he is on the record as explaining why he made the ad and why he started in sports. He says the women's sports issue was really the beginning in helping expose all this, because what it did was it got opponents of the LGBT movement comfortable with talking about transgender issues. The idea of sports fans were to get you to accept an asterisk on the gender identity of a transgender person. Because if they could get you to accept an asterisk in sports, they could get you to move that asterisk to other places, to bathrooms, to healthcare, to everywhere else. And in fact, the very first bills that I reported on in 2019 and 2020 were sports fans. And these sports fans, they cover a lot of things that you might not realize. So whenever you think of sports, especially whenever it comes to transgender people, the far right has tried very hard to get you to think of swimming and wrestling. But the sports that we've actually seen trans people banned from are sports like fishing, darts, disc golf, dancing. I've seen bands in pool. I promise you that, like, if you take estrogen, you don't have, like, little angle things that you get with the pool stick. It doesn't work that way. We even have seen bands in the incredibly athletic and gendered sport of chess. That's right, chess. FIDE, the International Chess Organization, argued that transgender women have no right to participate in men's chess and ban transgender women. I want to be clear that this isn't just transphobia, this is misogyny. The people who are in charge of the chess game are not doing it because they think that transgender women have an advantage of chess. They're doing it because they believe that men are smarter, that men have an advantage of their chess, because they don't view transgender women as women at all. And so the idea is that they think that women are just disadvantaged, that women are dumb, that women can't play chess at the same level as men. And it's not true. It's simply not true. The only reason why men tend to win chess at higher levels more is because they're exposed to chess 10 years earlier than most women. It's because they get much better training. Whenever women receive high amounts of training and learn from an early age, they are just as capable. And so you see these bans on transgender women in women's chess. And after sports, we see bans everywhere else. We see birth-shifting bans. We see locker room bans. We see gender-affirming care bans for transgender youth. Some people have argued that we should just give up on sports because if we give up on sports, they're going to stop there. And y'all, having tracked this for 6 years, they're not going to stop there. They never do. I've watched this in every state. All these states in dark red here, these are all states that have sports bans. Every one of those states went on to pass all the rest of the laws. And so, it's never about sports. If this was never about sports, it was never about bathrooms. It's not about kids. It's all about pushing transgender people out of society. And that is the end game. I, as a journalist, managed to sneak into one of the chats that many of the legislators were having. Gary Click is the bald dude in the center. He was the author of the gender affirming care ban in Ohio. You'll see some Michigan trans authors here. And I managed to get into their little audio space And I listen to what they say when they think nobody's listening. And they specifically said, like one of them said, so yeah, it's good that we got this law against transgender youth, but like the end game here is we have to end this for everyone, right? Like we have to end this completely for adults too. And Gary goes, yeah, that's true, but we got to do it piece by piece, bite by bite. We can't do it all at once. And so that's the idea. Is they start with sports, they go to bathrooms, they go to kids, they go to until they've completely made it where you cannot be trans in society. And so now you know, this is a map of all of the states where gender affirming care is banned for transgender youth. And many of these states also include gender affirming care bans for transgender adults as well. Florida, for instance, is a ban on 80% of trans adults' care. Many of the states have bans on incarcerated adults getting gender affirming care. And in some places, transgender prisoners are having their heads shaved and their medication withdrawn. This map right here, if you are a regular follower of mine, you might recognize it. And this is a map of all of the places, all of the states and the risk level of their states for the worst anti-trans laws. The states that are in dark red or black stripes are the ones where it is the most dangerous for transgender adults treatment. The states that are in dark blue are the ones that have passed protective legislation for transgenders. And so, this is how it works. Actually, good news, everybody. This is kind of cool. So, because I'm a journalist, I get up-to-date news on transgender people, and we can now change Ohio to light green because just now a court just overturned the Ohio gender affirming care law. So that's good. So we were just seeing across my trans views that I have with all my journalists that help me with my work here. So that's good. Good news. Let's talk about what's going on right now. So there are lots of court fights going on right now. There's a lot of federal stuff going on. There are travel restrictions for transgender people. People who are seeking to enter into the United States are experiencing difficulties entering the United States. If you are a transgender person who is trying to get a visa that matches your same-sex at birth, or that matches your gender identity, if that visa does not match your same-sex at birth, you could be barred from entry to the United States permanently. This just happened a week ago. I was the first to report that. Meanwhile, if you are a trans person seeking to leave the country, and you try to get your passport, many transgender people have had their passports held up in the processing process. They've had their passports returned with the wrong gender marker. Some people have had their documents confiscated. Some people have had their documents destroyed. And so if you are trying to get your passport right now as a trans person, I would recommend not doing it until a court case is complete on this topic. Meanwhile, you've got a trans military ban, where the rationale, stated rationale for the military ban, is that transgender people being trans conflicts with a soldier's commitment to an honorable, truthful, and disciplined lifestyle, even in one's personal life. And the assertion he is a woman, and his requirement that others honor this falsehood is not consistent with humility and selflessness required of a service member. The first transgender military ban said that trans people should be banned because of our health care. Because it's too costly to provide health care for us. Never mind that it costs the military more money to pay for erectile dysfunction drugs than it does to pay for gender affirming care. We've gone so far past that. Now, explicitly, in U.S. legal rationale, the reason why trans people are banned is because we are dishonorable. It's because we are untruthful, inherently undisciplined. That is what Trump is saying here. That is what the executive order says here. We have one executive order that bans gender-affirming care up to the age of 19. Why 19, not 18? Who knows? They're just adding years in. But I do think that the reason behind this is because they are trying to expand tolerance more and more. And another executive order says that if you're a teacher who supports transgender youth, if you're a teacher who uses a transgender kid's name or pronouns, you could be charged with practicing medicine without a license. That's more than a stretch. It makes no sense whatsoever. But that's what the executive order says. Meanwhile, the very word transgender is being stripped from government websites. I opened up this talk about Stonewall, about our history. We were part of the history of Stonewall. We were transgender people, were leaders at Stonewall. And now, if you go to the Stonewall website, the Stonewall National Monument website, which is run by the National Park Service, you will find that it now says that it was a victory for LGBT rights. They removed the word transgender. The word transgender has been removed from every government website. If you're a nonprofit that receives federal grants, you have to do the same thing. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children removed the word transgender from all of their websites. And in fact, they were told that they have to refer to transgender runaways as their dead name and as their old pronouns. We're seeing mass compliance from nonprofits with anti-trans executive orders. Hospitals are doing the same. NGOs are doing the same. And this is a major thing. Colleges are doing the same. I mentioned Stonewall. The first thing you see on your screen is Sylvia Rivera. She was a leader at Stonewall. Transgender woman. And just to show how poorly they are doing the erasure of transgender people, if you go to her page at the National Park Service website, it now says that at a young age, Sylvia began fighting for gay and rights. It used to say gay and transgender rights. Now, it's just gay and rights. What kind of rights? Who knows? Who knows what kind of rights she was fighting for? This was crazy. They just went through and Control F, replaced all the word transgender with nothing. It's wild. We have seen responses to all of this. So, transgender military members have come out and said that they have served honor and that they just want to continue to serve. Attorneys general, like Patricia James, are telling hospitals not to comply with the executive orders demanding that they reopen. School systems are saying that they will not comply with the executive orders. And in fact, the Montgomery County Public School System, which is the system that my own son goes to, has said that they will not comply with any anti-trans VO and they'll go to court if they need to. And some of the largest hospitals, like in Michigan, have restarted their care, basically daring the federal government to keep down. This is what we need. We need non-compliance with the legal executive orders. lawsuits ongoing in Minnesota, Oregon, and Washington. The attorneys general have successfully sued and prevented welcome there. The ACLU has also sued for PFLAG, and the anti-DEI executive order as well. And as we stand, as of right now, I just got the news that the Ohio State Constitution explicitly protects healthcare freedom, and therefore transgender youth can get care in Ohio, which just happened. We have so many lawsuits for employment. I'm tracking them. I'm going to be reporting on this immediately after our talk today. And there is room for growth. I'm going to play a video from my own wife, Representative Zephyr here in Montana. This video is, I think, important for people to recognize because it shows the power of representation. My wife is a Democrat. She's in the minority, in Montana. She's going to speak about a bill, a drag ban, and what you are going to see is after she speaks, a Republican is going to stand up every time. And then the vote is going to fail. Watch this video. Representative Zephyr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Here I am again, raising another bill targeting the LGBTQ community. I first want to start off and say, at its very core, drag is art. Drag is a beautiful art. Drag has a deep history in this country, and it is a history that is important to my community. You know, if you are a woman in this body wearing a suit today, you are challenging gender norms that existed long ago. And in some ways, drag does work to challenge those norms. There were 3 articles of clothing laws 50 years ago that said if you wore 3 articles of clothing that were indicative of the opposite gender, the police could stop you and arrest you. It was those laws that led to the police raiding an LGBTQ bar in New York and led to the Stonewall riots, one of the most important civil rights moments in my community's history. I also want to reject the notion, however, that these are, as the sponsor says, events where explicit content is expected or where audiences expect risque entertainment. Drag story hours I have been to here in Montana. They are like Disney princesses reading to people. We have people come in and talk about this. These are spaces where people come up and they sit down in libraries, and parents elect to bring their children and learn about books and the love of reading. And also, yes, be involved in part and to hear stories told from members of my community. That is important and that is beautiful, and I do not think that we should be standing up and saying that this art form, because it's somehow connected to my community, is not allowed. But there's something underpinning this that makes this even more insidious. And the sponsor called this a fix to last session's bill. It's important to note that last session's bill, when it was applied, the first application of this was not on a drag show. It was to prevent a trans woman from giving a history lesson in a library. That's where this came from. That's how this is going to be attempted to be applied, an attack against the trans community. And we have even more examples of that, because in committee, when the sponsor closed on this bill, he said, "This bill is needed," he said, and I quote his words, "because transgenderism is a fetish based on cross-dressing." Those were his words for why this bill is necessary. And I'm here to stand before the body and say that my life is not a fetish. My existence is not a fetish. I was proud, just a month ago, to have my son up in the gallery here. Many of you on the other side met him. When I go to walk him to school, that is not a lascivious display. That is not a fetish. That is my family. This is what these bills are trying to come after. Not obscene shows that we're getting in front of children. We have the mental test for that. We have laws for that. This is a way to target the trans community. And that is my opinion and the speaker's own words. Please vote no.
Further discussion, Representative Hessman?
Thank you, Madam Chair, to speak to the bill.
Representative?
I'm speaking as a parent and a grandmother, and I'm very emotional because I know the representative in C20 is also a parent. No matter what you think of that, she is doing her best to raise a child. I did my best to raise my children as I saw fit, and I'm taking it for granted that my children are going to raise my grandchildren as they see fit. Everybody in here talks about how important parental rights are. I want to tell you, in addition to parental rights, parental responsibility is also important. And if you can't trust a decent parent to decide where and when their kids should see what, then we have a bigger problem. So I advise you all to vote about parental rights, parental responsibility, and remember, we already have indecency laws in this state. We voted on one, I don't know, earlier this week, last week, sometime during the session. We all wanted to make sure we knew what indecent was. Now we know. Trust the parents to do what's right and stop these crazy bills. They're a waste of time. They're a waste of energy. We should be working on property tax relief and not doing this sort of business on the floor of this house and having to even talk about this. Please vote no.
Now rises on the motion of Representative C. Nichols and administrative advice report after having had it for consideration, motion is 675 recommending to pass in favor of the motion, vote aye. Those opposed vote no. Are there absentee votes?
None, Madam Chair.
Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? If not, the clerk will record the vote.
Madam Chair, 44 representatives have voted aye, 55 have voted no.
House Bill 675 has failed to pass second reading.
So that was what was so important about representation. Whenever you see somebody stand up, like this, and flip 13 votes, you know, they had a bill that got heard immediately after that. And that bill was going to remove trans kids from their parents. And that bill, 29 votes for it. I've been tracking anti-LGBTQ legislation for years now. And I can tell you that the amount of times Republicans actually flip on these votes whenever they reach the House floor, if the bill reaches the floor, it's usually going to pass whenever it comes to this topic. It's rare to see 3 or 4 flip. And to see 13 and then 29 actually immediately after flip. That's the power of representation. That's the power of speaking. That's hope. What that says is that it is possible to have your mind changed. You know, I have another video. I didn't prepare to play this video, but I would like to play it. I hope that I can. I'm going to pull this video up, because this just happened very, very recently. This happened a couple days ago. And we'll see if this lets me share this. Let's see, share QuickTime Player. It looks like it will. Wonderful. So, in Wisconsin, there was a hearing on a gender-affirming care ban. And this is actually a story that I'm going to be reporting on today. I'll let the Ohio story it's probably an even bigger one, so it's going to be a 15-year stay for me. But in Wisconsin, they have a gender affirming care ban. And this man, elderly gentleman, sat to speak in favor of the ban, in favor of banning gender affirming care for transgender people. Whenever it came time to speak, well, this is how it went.
So, all right, Larry, the floor is yours.
First of all, I'd like to apologize to you people. I was invited here to give my support for Bill 101. I have very little knowledge of gay people and things like that there. So when I came here, my eyes were open. I was one of the critics that sat on the side and made the decisions of what's wrong with two genders. So I got a little education that was unbelievable. I don't know exactly how to say this, but my perspective for people has changed. So I don't want to no more of your time. I apologize for being here, and I learned very lot about this.
I had to say that. It's powerful. And this is the power of representation. This is the power of people coming out. That man, he easily could have been like many other people that have spoken against transgender people. He could have stayed with his views and hated trans people until the day he died. But he didn't. I think that there is room for hope. There's room for work to be done. What does that look like for you? It might mean running for office one day. I highly recommend it to those of you who are simply minded. I'm somebody who is married to somebody who has run for office, who is helping people make that decision. Get involved politically. Go to these hearings. Go and speak. Be involved in your local politics. It can be really important. Maybe it doesn't look like that. Maybe what it looks like is having a conversation with somebody who maybe doesn't understand you or your friends or trans people or queer people if you are not trying to prove yourself. But having those conversations and helping them get to know who you are, or get to know who your friends are, or get to know who your kids are. Maybe it looks like doing something that shows that you are a whole and fully formed person. It might be making art, making video games, making music. The more people get to know who we are, the more that art actually goes towards justice, and it truly believes that. So anyway, as far as next steps for all of you, I do highly recommend that if you want to continue to stay informed on this topic, you can always leave me a newsletter at erininthe.morning.com. I also report on TikTok and Twitter and Instagram and all of the places at Erin in the Morning or Erin in the Morning, depending on the platform. I highly recommend, if you have Netflix, that you watch Disclosure. It's a documentary on Netflix called Disclosure. It's really good. It will go over how our media environment around transgender people has been shaped, and how representation becomes very important for us, and how that's changing. On books, I would recommend Living Girl by Julia Simone to explain sort of a lot of the more advanced concepts of being trans. There's a lot of good stuff about like trans femininity in there. I will also recommend for non-trans related books, but still very important to know books right now. I would recommend on Tyranny by Timothy Schneider and The Origins of Totalitarianism by Hannah Arendt. I think that both those books have a lot of wisdom for the demonization of first field minorities and how that plays into power politics. Lastly, get involved. Find the room that you can do the most good in. One day you will be asked to do good or bad towards transgender people. And whenever you are in that moment, I hope that you make the right choice. Until then, I'm here. I will continue to report on all of the things that come to us. And I will open the floor now for any questions, any discussion. I know that there's going to be a Q&A, I believe, in the future. And so that's what I've got for you. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for listening.
Wow. Thank you so much, Erin. That was such an enlightening, provoking, and deeply inspiring presentation. So much to think about. I think that you covered so much important ground. I really love the focus on history in particular. And thank you, Susan, for talking about history, not just as a past, but as the future and as the present. I think you gave a lot of really good information about our history of struggle, the current movement, current events, legislation, resistance. And I really love that you included some resources for students and some ways to get involved. So thank you so much. I had a question to start, but I hope that folks will, I encourage folks to ask their own questions. I know you've been doing really wonderful recordings of the executive orders, which is super grateful. But I am like I'm trying to focus on the good things, the positive things. I love the attention that you have. So I thought we could start with a question about what your vision for trans freedom is, trans liberation. That's something that I've been thinking about for a long time, but especially now, and I've just been thinking a lot about personhood and belonging and ways to be involved in society, ways to transform housing and work and education and healthcare and rights of self-determination, among other things. So I'd love to hear your vision, and I know that's embedded in your work, but what would be your vision of freedom for students, for trans people at this moment?
You know, whenever I think about what trans freedom, trans liberation looks like, I like to explain it in a way that I think is universal to all people. We want the same things that everybody else wants. You mentioned housing, you mentioned healthcare, you mentioned all those things. These are the things that trans people want, the things that immigrants want, disabled people want, some things that we all want. And I think that one of the things I try to explain to people is that, yes, you may be trans, but I'm not that different from you. Like, we bleed the same color, we want the same things. I hope, and the vision that I have for what it could look like in the future is that we no longer have to consider our transness in every space. We no longer have to think about how it might hold us back in any space. Trans people often have to consider their identity whenever they go to the doctor, and then whenever they go to play a local sport, whenever they play a game of pool with their friends in high school, whenever you go to travel, whenever you go to get your passport updated, whenever you have to sign a legal document, whenever you are boarding an airplane and don't know if you're going to get searched. I think a lot of cisgender people don't recognize how often our trans identities come into play in things that they just take for granted. I think a lot of people take for granted the ability to join a local youth team. A lot of people take for granted the ability to get on a flight without the very cisgender-based body scanners not flagging you because of how your body looks like. I think a lot of people don't understand there are all these little time taxes on being trans. Extra things that you have to do to sign a paper, extra things you have to do to prove who you are. I can't get my birth certificate changed because I'm from Louisiana. And whenever I submit my birth certificate to somewhere, I've got to always submit my name change document and gender change document with it. And explain it to somebody every single time. One day, I hope that I can exist and we can exist alongside everybody else while attempting to obtain the same dreams that everybody else wants to obtain. affordable housing, food security, being able to love how we want to love, being able to exist how we want to exist, being able to declare who we are to the world. That's what I'm working towards. That's what I'm working towards my writing. That's what I think a lot of groups are working towards, not just transgender people. And that's why it's important to build that sort of cross-movement solidarity. Because we are all wanting the same thing. And if we can all stand together and fight for those things, then maybe we can get there. And yeah, that's the idea, like the way I do that.
Thanks so much. For folks in the audience, your voice is important. Does anyone have a question for Erin? Any questions?
Yeah, and I have an idea. It would be wonderful, I think, if you are comfortable and have a question to come up here just so that Erin and Red can see you, you know?
Yes, I would love that.
Yeah.
I can't see anybody right now, so I've been talking to the voice, but I know that there are people there, so.
You've been talking to your slideshow. Yeah, and I'd love to even turn the camera, but I want to make sure everybody in the audience is comfortable with that. And then the other thing is, if you want to come up and ask a question, we can video mute as well. And we also have a microphone. Aka can bring a microphone around to you, but I think this is the preferred methodology. Very.
Thank you very much for your work, and thank you very much for being here in Brooklyn College. My name is Erin Sosa, and I am a lesbian. I'm 69 years old, and I grew up in Venezuela, and until I was a very masculine girl. I couldn't wear pants to go to school. I couldn't wear pants to go to church. So my mother allowed me to wear pants all the time, but I have to wear a skirt to go to school until my last year in high school, that we made a project. So I wanted to say that the transgender struggle is everybody's struggle, because, you're next. Everybody's next. So if we don't fight for our friends, our people, we're next. Everybody's next, but maybe white, privileged men, like the framers say, we go back to the citizenship of the early days of the Constitution. But everybody else is next, so that's what I thank you very, very much, and I'm planning to follow you and say hello to your family and your friends.
Well, thank you so much. Actually, what I want to say to that is it is true that these struggles don't just affect transgender people. The bills that target transgender people most commonly affect cisgender, gender non-conforming people, like cisgender butch lesbians, for instance, or cisgender women with short hair. The most common person challenged in a bathroom right now is not a trans woman. It's a cisgender lesbian with short hair. We just got in Phoenix, Arizona, there's a viral TikTok that just happened about a week ago where a cisgender black woman who has short hair had male police officers walk into the restroom and try to kick her out. And she's a cisgender woman just in there, they're doing the things that they are afraid of. They're the ones that are sending cisgender people into bathrooms trying to sneak a peek at, a cisgender woman's genitals. That's what was going on. And we see this in sports all the time. Look at the boxer Amani Khalid, who was assigned female at birth, was cisgender, was never transitioned in her life. And she's got the President of the United States calling her a trans woman. She's got, the President of the United States calling her a man, is what he's actually doing. It's all about policing bodies. And I guarantee you that any definition, any method, any visual method that they use to target somebody like me is not just going to land on transgender people. It hits us all. It is about reinforcing a very rigid view of gender. Reinforcing a very rigid view of what clothes you're allowed to wear. A very rigid view about how you are allowed to comport yourself within your gender norms. if you don't match those beauty standards, if you don't match those behavioral standards of your gender, you're going to get swept up too. And that's the purpose. It's not just about trans people. So that was very important.
Yeah. Anyone else in the audience here? Do you want to come up? Okay, great.
Okie dokie. First of all, thank you for your presentation. I've learned like tremendously, like so much, some like things that I didn't even learn in school, like throughout my life. So I guess my questions would be, how can we go about attacking like the infrastructures and these organizations and schools that don't teach us the history of LGBTQ people, specifically with trans people, and also how can we go about combating the fake news that goes directed towards trans people? For example, you have far right wing people saying, "Oh, all trans people are groomers," and it's like to the point where a lot of the public sphere believes it, even though there's no justification for it. So how can we combat that too as well?
Really good question. And I like to first look at history. Just like I started my presentation, I also draw from history and these moments. And as bad as it is right now, it's been bad before. We had in the 1970s the Lavender Scare, where they searched the entire federal government for any gay person and fired them. Over 15,000 employees were fired under the Lavender Scare. We had in the 1990s very similar anti-gay movements that were thriving at the time. And I remember whenever I was young, whenever I was in high school and junior high school back in the 1990s and early 2000s, it was impossible to learn about our history. The good thing is that we managed to teach our history through oral tradition, through telling each other where we come from. And you cannot put the genie back in the bottle. The reason why we see schools that are banning history about LGBTQ people is because the people that are in power think that that will stop that history from being transmitted. But God, it's impossible to do that. Look at TikTok, look at YouTube, look at me and my own writing. Like, we are out there, we are telling our stories. And I think that the number one way that we combat things is through telling our stories loudly. It's through making sure that, like, if you see a picture of the book burning one day, you're like, hey, the books are actually burning there, right? It's actually like that's a bunch of trans books because they actually targeted trans people first and all this. Like, this is one of the first groups that were targeted. If you were in if you learn about Stonewall, like, mention that, hey, Sylvia Rivera was like one of the leaders at Stonewall, and they just took her down on a page down from the government. Like, it's in being able to have these talks that we do a lot of, that we can combat a lot of this. The other thing, and I think the bigger way of doing things, is sometimes resistance doesn't look like resistance. Sometimes activism doesn't look like activism. Let me explain. If you are a queer person, or if you have a queer friend, or if you are in that audience out there and you are trans, or any particular identity, sometimes what activism looks like is doing something you love, like art, music, making a video game, writing a book. And then, whenever somebody who might not know about transgender people reads your book, plays your video game, listens to your song, and they like it, then they have to contend with the fact that they like something that a trans person made. That is cognitive dissonance. That's speech and debate 101. Because if you can connect with them on a separate level, and then you mentioned, and by the way, this was made by a trans person. This was made by a disabled person. This was made by an immigrant. like you have done something, you have connected with them on a human level that is beyond just getting in their face and saying, you know, respect trans people. Like it's in my opinion, the best activism is thriving at what you love to do. Don't feel like you always have to go into a courtroom, into a meeting room, into a hearing room. For those of you who are out there that are good at that, do it. Like it's important too. Like activism is in and of itself good. But like, God, bring your whole self to the game. That is the best way to handle it. And I think that honestly, we've done good at that. There's one thing I didn't mention in my speech, but I want to add to any future speeches that I give, is that the Gallup poll just came out just now, a new Gallup poll came out, that shows that LGBTQ identification is now up to 9.3%. That is up from 7.3% last year. That is a 2%. That's a massive jump in just a year during one of the hardest years in history for us. And in the last 5 years, it's doubled. And so, like, people are coming out more now than ever before, even in the face of all this other stuff, which shows that they're losing. Because the end goal is to make us go in the closet. The end goal is to make us go away, but we're not. And I think the more people come out, the more people just are allowed to be themselves in public, the better things go. So anyway, thank you for your question. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here that would mind me doing that for a second? Okay. Are you sure? Anyone? Anyone? Going once? Going twice? Yeah. All right. We have our little webcam camera. Oh. What just happened? Default. See, we shouldn't mess with this. Wiggle, wiggle. Okay, there we go. No matter. What? No, I think just a quick glance, right? That's good? Okay. My arm might get tired. Oh, I guess I could. I could reverse it. There we go. Actually, brilliant. Oh. Yeah, I used to be in film. Okay. Oh. All right, yeah, I know. Why Aka? The Aka, I guess you have to ask a question now. Can you hear? You could try this microphone. It might work too.
I forgot. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. To add to what you said about the acts of, how we can resist without even, doing anything big, I think there's something I also learned from Kelly, the director. It's like just queer joy. I think I'll just being present, just, going about our business, putting it out there. It's a brave thing to announce to the world I'm trans. It's a brave thing to announce to the world I'm queer or gay or whatever. But I think just by doing that, that's an act of activism. That's an act of defiance, rather. It's like by putting it out there, we're not going to hide in this terrible time. We're going to be up in everyone's faces right now. And for me, that's just my little act of defiance, in a way. So, yeah.
There is a transgender woman who works at Tom's the ACLU, but she's also just brilliant whenever it comes to philosophy and stuff. Her name is Jillian Granstad. And she wrote in one of her recent pieces that every out queer person is a policy failure for the people who oppose us. It is a policy failure for them. And we are paying out more than ever before. And so, whenever we get down to brass tacks, we're here. I'm not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. Nobody's going anywhere. We are here. And I think that over time, that matters. That is activism, because other people will get to know you. And you might change their life for others. My mom passed away last year, and it was really, sad time to me. But about a month before she passed, she used my name for the first time. And she said, Erin, and like was very accepting. And she explained to me that that her work hired a trans person, and that she had been sharing an office with a trans person, and that this trans person knew who I was and was like referring to me by my name and referring to me by my pronouns. And for some reason, this other trans person who I never knew was able to connect with my mom in a way that I couldn't. And it got her to use my name. And that goes to show exactly what you were just saying. Sometimes activism is literally just coming out because you never know the impact that you have on the people around you, and you never know how that impact touches others. You know, somebody came out, somebody was public to my mom, and it changed my life, and it gave me acceptance from my mom before she passed away. I will always be eternally, I couldn't put into words how thankful I am for that person being who they were. You know, you change the world in ways that you don't even know. You change the world in ways you'll never know. And that is one of the things that does it. Thank you.
You're snapping.
Hi, that was a beautiful presentation. Thank you for taking the time. Could you repeat the first book you mentioned? The second one I wrote down, but what was the first one?
Whipping Girl by Julia Serrano. I actually recommend anything by Julia Serrano. She is absolutely brilliant feminist philosopher, trans woman herself. She was writing on trans feminine philosophy back in the late 2000s, early 2010s. She's got a few books. Whipping Girl is probably the best one of them. And it's, you know, I've seen it in a number of like gender studies classes and whatnot. She's a top-notch writer. Very easy to understand too. It's not like super high-minded stuff. It's like very down-to-earth stuff that she writes about. But it also will make you think. It'll make you think in a lot of really good ways. And her whole purpose of writing is not just to write about being trans, but what a transgender woman can teach us about womanhood in general. And it's really solid. I highly recommend it to everybody.
One other thing that I do in my, I'm a professor here, is that in my normal speech of things is always, you like your boyfriend, you got your girlfriend, you know, like normal, you know, you're trans. Like somehow part of the language is mentioned the diversity of humanity that we are. So that's another thing that I kind of try to contribute is that. And I think Brooklyn College here, we're getting, under the leadership of this group of people in the center, that we make inclusion as part of a normal speech when we're talking in faculty council and stuff like that, to mention all the range of people identities. And I think that also getting to the younger people, that, we are diverse and.
Can you hold on that? There's one more question, and I think.
Hi, thanks for being here. This one maybe a bit of a bummer, but I'm interested in your thoughts on the perspective that I have around like all of the laws around gender affirming care and drag laws and that kind of thing. Kind of coincides with all of the abortion laws that are being passed, and a pattern that I see is that these are really attacks on the means to an end to attack the 14th Amendment. And in some ways, as a trans person myself, it really doesn't even feel like it's about me. It feels like it's about bodily autonomy and the 14th Amendment. And I'm curious about your thoughts on that, briefly.
So I'll say something real quick. First thing I'll say is that I'm kind of I'm not getting the full thing of what is being said.
Oh.
It's not coming clear through the audio, but I did hear most of what she said. And so I'll mention a couple things. The first thing that I'll say is to the person who was right before you, when it comes to inclusive language, I think that this language is important, and I try to use it myself in my day-to-day environment. I also think that inclusive language ends up taking up, for whatever reason, it ends up taking up a higher amount of bandwidth in like the political conversations. Like whenever we talk about some of the bills that are targeting trans people, and you see like the far right will like jump on chest beaters or something like that. It becomes like this big thing. And I think that a lot of trans people, while we want the inclusive language model is really important, I think a lot of trans people are also at the point where it's like we also need like physical, very real needs right now. We need our hormonotherapy. We need our ability to go to the bathroom in peace. We need to we are material realities to be affected. And I will tell you that, as I care so much about ensuring that we are both inclusive and that we are taking care of people, like with material needs. And I often think that sometimes the inclusive side of things is extremely important, and like I advance it in my day-to-day life, but it ends up taking an outsized importance whenever our material needs are being attacked on a day-to-day basis. That said, it's definitely something to point out, and whenever we can use that language, it's important. The other thing that I'll say is that on the second question, the abortion question, it's something that I regularly get. The fact that attacks on transgender people are often also used in attacks on abortion, and that these two things, they merge and they coalesce, they come together. I had an old thread where I wrote a link on this, and it's the idea of transgender people flies in the face of what has become a far-right cult of reproduction. They view transgender people as people who will not reproduce and therefore as dangerous to their ideology. Let me also connect this to another topic, to not just reproduction, but white people's reproduction. This goes into great replacement theory. If you ever read Elon Musk's posts, especially his older posts on transgender people, his biggest fear is that we are going to reduce white birth rates, and that by transitioning, we are harming Western civilization because we're not having a bajillion kids. And whenever you think about it that way, a lot of the things they do make sense. A lot of the arguments they use against transgender people, a lot of the ways that they also match arguments used against abortion, but also match their arguments against birth control. Musk tweeted about a year ago that birth control was untested in youth under the age of 18 and should be withheld and banned for those under the age of 18. We see the same arguments. The ink was not even dry on the Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe v. Wade, before the very next day, the Alabama Attorney General said that gender affirming care is not something that has a long history and tradition in the United States, and therefore should be banned. And so they use the exact same language as they did in Roe v. Wade to try to justify it. And even on the enforcement front, within a week of lawmaking in Missouri, they tried to pass a bill that made it against the law to travel across state lines to get an abortion. And then, in Idaho, they passed a bill that made it against state law to travel across state lines to get affirmative care for trans people, for trans youth. Like, they're using the exact same tools. They are using the exact same threats. They're citing the exact same laws. Yes, they are absolutely connected to one another. And I think that some of the best pushback that I've seen on trans things have come from people that are strong in the regro community. So, women's rights organizations in the state of New York in a number of states that had safe state bills. There were a few states where the RICO orgs rejected working with the transgender community, and it harmed those bills. I think that it's important to keep solidarity with one another, because this is something that affects everyone. It affects, and they're using it in very similar ways. I'll also add that the next target is antidepressants, by the way. We already see it with RFP Junior, but they're using the same arguments against antidepressant use as well. So anyway, yeah, that's what I would say about all that.
Thank you. If there are other questions or comments or follow-up questions, maybe come up to the podium so we can be sure Erin can hear clearly. Anyone else? We're almost towards the end. We have 4 minutes, though, so maybe I'll take this opportunity. But if anybody else has a question. First of all, this has just been totally amazing. Both you and Red, thank you so much for doing the work of introducing and moderating, trying to make this stick. Okay. So you mentioned towards the end of your presentation that we will all be called to do something, whether positive or negative. We will, in our upcoming near future and even right now, be called to act. And we talked a little bit about coming out and the importance of that and being visible and being a representative, but it made me curious, what do you envision? What are some examples so students can be ready, I can be ready, and then maybe, what to look out for and how to act in those moments?
Absolutely. I've said this for a long time. It is now happening for a lot of people. And, I've been warning people that you're going to make a hard decision one day. You're going to make a hard decision one day. You're going to have to make a hard decision one day. And I hope that the people that I told that to are remembering what I've said. I've said this in my speech for the last 3 years. Let me give you some very real world examples right now. I'll actually go back a little bit in time to explain one of them. In 2022, Governor Greg Abbott in Texas sent all of the child protective services agents throughout the state to try to round up all the trans kids and question them and charge their parents with child abuse. There were 3 child protective services agents, including one transgender man, who, at great risk to themselves, went to each one of these kids and closed out the case. Just closed it out. Closed it out, closed it out, closed it out. He lost his job. He made a hard decision. He was in the room where he could have complied, or he could have done something that maybe was against the rules, but that saves people. And he made that. He made that hard choice. He did that. Now, looking at today, there are a lot of people that are in nonprofits. There are a lot of people that are in colleges. A lot of people in medical schools, a lot of people in hospitals, who are super big allies, who are, when faced with a threat from an executive order, that is not law, by the way, executive orders are not law, rather than fight on behalf of their transgender clients or transgender students or transgender peers or transgender coworkers, are saying, well, maybe we should take the word transgender from all of our websites because we don't want to threaten all of the work that we're doing here. And so they're removing the word transgender from all the websites. Or maybe they say, maybe we should out trans kids to their parents because if not, this executive order is going to harm me. Or maybe we should stop giving gender-affirming care to transgender youth at our hospital because we're doing really good work in other places and they'll come back around again one day. A lot of people are making these decisions, and even in nonprofits, they're saying, we don't want heat on us, so we're going to stop, our binder distribution program. An LGBT organization that I won't name, and their binder distribution program for people under the age of 18, even though they're not even affected by the executive order. The executive order doesn't even touch them. A lot of people are in these rooms right now and they're not making the good decisions. There are people that are. There are people that are saying, no, I'm not stopping. I'm going to keep protecting my trans youth. I'm going to keep protecting my trans colleagues. I'm going to keep protecting my trans coworkers. You might find yourself in one of those positions one day. It might be, you're in college. It might be you're deans decide to remove the diversity statement, or your deans decide to hide all of their DEI programs, or, I don't know specifically what your particular.
So far, so good. So far, so good. Yeah.
There are a lot that have been so far so good that get switched. So be careful. But that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. And for a long time, being an ally was easy. There was no skin in the game for a lot of people. In the last 2 months, being an ally has gotten harder for some people. Maybe not for you, maybe not for the people that are in this room, but it has gotten harder for some people. And I hope that allyship is not hollow. I'll close by saying there's a lot of criticism in corporate credit because a lot of people said that allyship is hollow. And while there's arguments being made for its importance in normalizing trans people or normalizing queer people or LGBTQ people, a good half to 75% of all the corporations have now pulled down all of their diversity statements, have pulled out of Pride and no longer sponsoring Pride and stuff like that. Like, the moment that they got a taste of what we've gotten for the last 5 years, they just they're gone. That's not ambition, it never was. And so, you might find yourself in one of those rooms where you gotta make a difference, and I hope you remember to tell them that.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Everybody's clapping. Everyone's clapping. And again, for those who may still be on the live stream, I know there was like an audio issue, a little bit of static, part of why I think we put on the closed captions, but we will fix that. We have a clean recording as well. So anyone who's there can come back to it hopefully very soon and get a clean version of this because we recorded the whole Zoom. All right, you guys, thank you so much. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Red. And I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.